In the small village where the days seemed to stretch endlessly and the seasons changed only in the softest of whispers, there lived an old man named Elias Rowan. To those who lived nearby, he was just old Elias, the carpenter who kept to himself, the one with the little cottage tucked away on the edge of the woods. The ivy that grew thick over the front of his house almost made it look like a secret, hidden from the world. But to those who truly saw him, the ones who knew his quiet ways, Elias was far more than just an old man. To the children who often caught glimpses of him through the window, to the animals who seemed to find their way to his door no matter how far they had wandered, Elias was a quiet legend. He had built his cottage with his own two hands when he was young, filled with hope and dreams. He'd imagined a life there with his beloved Miriam, a woman whose laughter had once made the whole world feel like spring. He had dreamed of children running through the house, of a warm kitchen filled with the scent of freshly baked bread. But life had other plans. Miriam had been taken from him far too soon, swept away by an illness that had ravaged her body in a matter of weeks. Elias never fully recovered from losing her. He never married again. There was a deep well of sorrow in him that he couldn't fill. But life had a way of softening the edges of grief, and Elias found solace in small things. He gave his love to the animals that came into his life, strays with broken bodies, forgotten souls, those who had lost their way. He gave them food, a roof over their heads, and a place to rest. And in return, they gave him something even more precious: companionship. The little cottage, filled with the echoes of his long-ago dreams, had transformed into a sanctuary for these creatures. There were beds for dogs, perches for birds, and a cracked window left open year-round to let the fresh air in. The fire was always lit, not for him, but for the older animals who needed it to ease their aching bones. Elias never asked for anything in return. He just gave, quietly, without hesitation. People in the village thought him strange. They whispered about how he spoke to the animals as though they could understand him. Some said he was lonely, that he had built a life without humans because he couldn't bear to open his heart again. But deep down, they respected him. They knew that when an animal was hurt or lost, it was Elias they turned to. One winter's day, after the first snow had fallen like a soft blanket over the land, Elias went out for his daily walk in the woods. The cold bit at his skin, but his breath came slow, like a man who had long learned how to take his time with things. That was when he saw her. She was lying beneath a frozen hedge, her golden fur matted with snow and dirt. She looked so small, so fragile, as though the weight of the world had finally taken its toll on her. Elias knelt beside her, and for a moment she didn't move. She was so still, and her breath came in quick, shallow bursts. But then, just as he was about to reach for her, she lifted her head slightly, and her tail thumped the ground once. Weakly, but it was enough. Elias wrapped her in his coat, his heart heavy with the thought that this might be the last animal he could help. He carried her back to his cottage, where the fire was already crackling in the hearth. He named her Grace, for that was what she brought him, even in her broken state. For days she didn't move much. She lay by the fire, her body trembling, her breath unsteady. Elias cared for her as he had cared for so many others. He fed her, bathed her, whispered softly to her, and slowly she began to recover. But she never left his side. Grace didn't act like the other animals. She didn't play in the yard or chase after squirrels. Instead, she simply followed Elias everywhere he went. If he sat in his chair by the fire, she lay next to him. If he worked in the garden, she limped along behind him. Her presence was constant, quiet and comforting. There were no grand gestures between them, no loud declarations of love. Their bond was woven into the quiet moments. The way Grace would rest her head on his knee when he sat, the way she would follow him without question, as if they had been walking the same path for years, even though they had only just met. Elias told her stories of the past, of Miriam, the love of his life, and the house they had planned to fill with laughter and children. He told Grace about the tree where he and Miriam had carved their initials, about the letter she had written to him before she died, a letter he kept tucked under his pillow all these years. Grace would listen, her cloudy eyes full of a knowing that only animals seem to possess, and Elias would feel, just for a moment, that perhaps she understood more than he could put into words. As the years passed, they both slowed. Elias's hands, once steady and sure, became stiff, his joints aching with the weight of time. Grace, too, grew frail. Her steps became slower, her once bright eyes clouded with age. But they carried on side by side, moving through the days with the quiet strength that had always defined their bond. Elias knew their time together was limited, but he didn't fear it. He knew that whatever came, they would face it together, just as they always had. One evening, as the snow began to fall softly outside, Elias sat in his favorite chair, Grace resting beside him. The fire crackled in the hearth, casting a warm glow across the room. Elias reached into his coat pocket and pulled out the last biscuit, the last one he had baked, the last one he had made for all the animals who had come through his door over the years. He looked at Grace, his heart full of love for this quiet companion who had stayed with him all these years. "One left, my girl," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "Let's save it for tomorrow. Just one more day." He tucked the biscuit back into his pocket and rested his hand gently on her head. There was no rush, no need to hurry. In that moment, it felt like time had slowed down just for them. The world outside was cold, but inside it was warm, wrapped in the love they had shared over the years. They never woke. When the villagers came to check on Elias the next morning, they found the cottage silent. The fire had gone out, the birds were still, and the footsteps in the snow had stopped. Inside, Elias sat in his chair, his hand resting gently on Grace's head. She, too, had passed quietly, as if she had simply gone to sleep beside him. In his pocket, they found the biscuit. At the funeral, there were more animals than people. Dogs lay by the gravesite, cats curled up on windowsills, and even a lone falcon circled overhead, casting its shadow over the mourners below. A little girl who had once brought Elias a wounded rabbit stepped forward, her eyes red from crying. She placed a single biscuit atop the casket. "For Grace," she whispered, her voice trembling. "So she has one for the journey." And perhaps they did journey together, side by side, just as they had always been meant to. In the years that followed, Elias's cottage became a sanctuary. The villagers preserved it, not as a museum, but as a place filled with warmth and love, a living memory of a man who had given so much to the creatures that had come into his life. And sometimes when the sun sets and the wind rustles through the trees, the villagers say they can still see them, Elias and Grace, walking by the lake, side by side, their shadows long in the fading light. Their bond, forged in quiet moments and shared lives, will never fade. Because true love, the kind that asks for nothing but gives everything, never disappears. It lingers, in paw prints, in soft fur, and in the last biscuit, waiting for just one more day. If you're enjoying my stories, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support truly means the world. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the story. What parts resonated with you? What would you love to see more of? Share your feedback and suggestions in the comments. It helps me grow and bring you even better stories.